Hi, welcome to our last unit. The behaviors argued that our actions are the result of past learning histories and eliciting stimuli present in our environment. Strict behavior is focused on overt behavior and the purely objective properties of the environment. However, when principles of behaviorism are extended to species capable of complex cognition, it becomes clear that often what matters is one's subjective interpretation of environmental stimuli rather than the objective properties of the stimulus itself. The cognitive approach further expands on this idea to examine the ways in which we subjectively interpret and construe our world. Perception is a constructive process. Each of us filters the sensory information that we receive from the environment through our own subjective lens. The experiences we have depend in part on the personal constructs that we apply. Just like scientists use theories to interpret data, George Kelly argued that we rely on personal constructs to interpret and predict the world around us. These personal constructs determine what lens you use to make sense of information. Think about first impressions. What are some of the characteristics you notice about someone? The answer depends on your personal constructs. Some may notice friendliness, whereas others notice confidence first. And the same behavior may be interpreted in different ways by different people. I may view someone as confident, but you may see them as arrogant. I often notice that my boyfriend will see someone as laid back, but I'll see that same person as irresponsible. Our personal constructs are polarized, either or. We see responsible or irresponsible, friendly or not. There's no middle ground. So to contextualize primary impressions, we must apply secondary constructs. We can apply multiple constructs to understand complex events and individuals. We not only form impressions of other individuals and events we experience, but also of ourselves. Information about the self is organized into self-schemas. Different traits and characteristics may dominate the self-schema of different people. Dominant central aspects of the self-schema guide self-relevant decisions. For example, imagine that someone asks you if you are creative. How easily and quickly can you answer that question? If creativity is central to your self-concept, then you probably answer pretty quickly. But if you have to ask, well, what do you mean by creative? Then creativity is probably not central to your self-schema. You don't have creativity as an important, well-defined part of your self-concept. Our self-schema contains information relevant to the current version of the self and future possible selves, whether these are desired or dreaded future selves. Both the current and future self-schema can influence how you process and respond to information. My current self is healthy, but I have a family history of heart disease, so I'm very conscious of what I eat and my blood pressure because I fear that future self that has heart problems. Now think about how your self-schema influences how you respond to feedback you get from others, opportunities that present themselves, etc. Differences in self-schemas can explain why two different people may have two very different emotional reactions to the same event. I always think about how different students respond differently to the same grade. At the end of the semester, I often have students ask me about their final grade. Sometimes I have a student come in and I tell them that they got a D in the class and they are devastated. Then sometimes I tell a student that they got a D in the class and they ask, so I passed? And I tell them, yes, a D is passing, and they are thrilled. Same grade, same information, but two very different responses. Their response could depend upon whether they view the self as an academic, whether a psychology course is important to their future self or not. And so the basketball example is my example. I went to a small high school and I was on the basketball team because everyone was. Basketball was a big part of the community and everyone played. As you can imagine, I was horrible and I hated it. Then one day, the coach told me, "You lack the competitive drive to ever be a good athlete." It was like a light bulb turned on. I realized that he was absolutely right. I am not an athlete. I will never be one. And I don't care to try. After that, I had a lot more fun playing. I was still terrible at it, but I had fun. So I'm not saying to give up on things that are important, but just that you get to construct that self-schema for yourself. You get to decide what's important to you and who you want that possible self to be. But read the last two chapters, and I hope that your possible self is someone who aces this last exam. All right, bye guys.